chess can also be beautiful.
If you're a chess fan, you might have heard about the insanely popular chess-themed drama The Queen's Gambit on Netflix. This show has managed to baffle millions with a single season, and people are now wondering whether the show will have a second season. If you're wondering too, here are 10 theories about The Queen's Gambit Season 2. Number 10. Taylor-Joy is willing to return. I might not know if Season 2 is actually happening, but the cast and crew seem to support the idea of a new season. Taylor-Joy, who plays Beth in the show, seems willing to join the show for a new season. Even though she feels like Beth got a good ending, she thinks that another installment of the brilliant show could definitely be a possibility. I mean, what's the harm? People absolutely loved the show, and everybody just wanted to learn how to play chess after it. Also, as far as the show is concerned, the characters still have a lot to resolve. This includes Beth's traumatic past and her relationships with the people around her. This is why other cast members have also shown a willingness to return to the show if a new season is ever announced. Now that the cast is on board, the makers of the show should really take a hint and give us some good news. Number 9. Beth and Harry. A popular Season 2 theory is that Beth might finally get some romantic time with former rival and flame Harry Beltic. The handsome Mr. Beltic was absolutely loathed by Beth when they were rivals, but after they fell in love, things seemed to get better for the pair. Sadly, our favorite pair ended things on bad terms when Beltic asked Beth to stop drinking, and she responded cruelly to his suggestion.
I'm gonna leave you.
You're wrong, you know.
After this, the two parted ways, but it did seem like the pair still had a soft spot for each other. So when Beltic came to her aid during the adjournment of her final match, he and Beth finally mended fences and were on good terms again. But the real question is whether the new season will feature an extension to their story or not. I mean, they have pretty great chemistry and thousands of fans around the world would love to see the two together. Number 8. The question of Beth's career. We all know how serious Beth was about her chess career. She quite literally went against the world to establish herself as a female chess player in a patriarchal society. And even though Beth's victories at the end of the show were satisfying to watch, we wonder whether the new season will feature Beth's career going to new heights. I mean, it's difficult to imagine what more she can achieve when she's already unseated the #1 chess player in the world. But with Beth, one never really knows. So even though it might seem like a professional dead end to Beth, there's still a lot she can achieve in the next season.
I may have just played the best chess player of my life.
Number 7. Exploring Beth's love life. Beth's love life has literally been one of the highlights of the show, especially her equation with Towns. When they were younger, Beth and Towns had an awkward moment when Towns' boyfriend walked in on them during a romantic chess match. Beth was obviously very embarrassed and ran away from the scene immediately. But when they met later in Moscow, Towns confessed that his feelings for Beth were more complicated than he let on. He was definitely confused about his own sexuality as well, even though the writers didn't explore that. Fans have theorized that a new season could not only explore Beth and Towns' relationship in detail, but could also reveal Towns' possible bisexuality to us. No matter what happens, the next season is bound to feature some romantically charged action for both Beth and Towns. Maybe they'll fulfill all our dreams and finally get together with each other. We can only hope for the best.
Our readers back home in Kentucky would like to know if it's true.
Number 6. Creators are satisfied with the show's end. Another reason why we might not get a second season for The Queen's Gambit is that the makers of the show are actually quite satisfied with how the show has turned out. In fact, the carefully designed ending has pleased them too. The main character got what she wanted, and the ending didn't have any cliffhangers. In fact, the story had a pretty satisfactory conclusion. And since the ending was so great, they might not see a reason to reopen the plot of the show and extend it into another season. But despite this, fans of the show are really hoping they do. Number 5. The show was originally intended to be a limited series. The lack of source material is understandable since the show was originally supposed to be a limited series. This means that it would have been limited to an amazing single season. But now that fans are requesting another season, Scott Frank and his team might face a bit of issue with things like source material. And since the show was supposed to be limited, the first season was designed to include as much information as possible, which leaves very little for the next season. And even if the writers do come up with an extension to the original story, will they be able to do justice to it? We can only find out once the second season is approved and released on Netflix, but that'll take a couple of years at least, so all we can do right now is wait. Number 4. Source material has run out. Even though Season 2 does not seem like a possibility, the writers do have some major challenges ahead of them. One of the biggest challenges they have to face is a lack of source material. The first season used up most of the main source material from Walter Tevis's book, and now there isn't a lot of material left for the next season. The writers will probably have to take some special permissions and come up with some material of their own. But that will obviously take a bit of time, which might delay the next season even further.
I'm Benny Watts.
I know. We met a couple of years ago in Cincinnati.
Number 3. Beth and Benny. At some point during the first season, we all shipped Benny Watts and Beth. Even though they might not be the most popular ship in the show, fans do have hope for the two. Benny and Beth did have a lot of chemistry, but their intimate encounter ended quite awkwardly. And since both of them were so disappointed with how things ended, they kinda disconnected with each other. But since their friendship continued to the very end of the first season, fans have theorized that a second season might explore their relationship in more detail. Who knows, they might even end up together. Number 2. Beth will address her past. Now that Beth has bested the best chess player in the world, you might be wondering what more she could do in the next season. There have been talks of the next season focusing more on Beth as a person and unpacking her childhood trauma. Even though she's extremely intelligent and an excellent chess player, Beth carries the weight of many bad memories. This includes memories of her mother who suffered from mental illnesses and ultimately committed suicide. After her mother's death, Beth was put into an orphanage and was then adopted by a family. Her adoptive father was a cruel man who walked out on the family, and her adoptive mother died a couple of years after that. This is obviously a lot of tragedy for a young girl to experience, and it clearly had its effects on her mental health and her overall personality. But we've yet to see Beth shed a tear over her past. Has she repressed all these bad memories? Seems like she has. So Season 2 might feature a lot of internal battles and overcoming the effects of all her past trauma.
I'm not obsessed with it the way one has to be to win it all. The way you are.
Number 1. We might have to wait a couple of years. If you're hoping to see a new season of The Queen's Gambit come out soon, I might have a little bit of bad news for you. Firstly, there aren't any talks of there being a new season yet, so we don't really know if the show is going to be approved for another season. But even if the show is picked up for another season, it'll probably take years before new episodes are featured on Netflix. Let me tell you why. First, Netflix will have to consult with the estate of Walter Tevis, who has written the novel that the show is based on. Once they receive approval, writers can be hired to continue the story. After this, Scott Frank, the genius who spent years writing and directing the series, will have to spend a couple more years trying to envision and create a new season. After all, the second season needs to be just as good as the first one. So even if the show gets approved for another season, you won't be able to mark your calendars anytime soon. So what do you think? Will The Queen's Gambit have another season? Will it be as good as the first one? Let me know in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you next time on the channel.